What's going on, guys? We got to talk about Ethereum. Spot Ethereum ETFs were approved, and we're getting a little bit of a sell-off. Why is that? Well, I'm going to talk about it in this video. We're going to look over Ethereum, we're going to look over Bitcoin, and we'll look over a couple of the Bitcoin miners, see what's going on today. But yes, Spot Ethereum ETFs have been approved for trading. They are not live yet. It'll take a little while to get them going, get them up and running. But we saw a little bit of a buy the rumor, sell the news event. Ethereum started running up in anticipation of this approval. Once we saw rumors that there was actually a likelihood of it happening, Ethereum went from basically 3,000 to around 4,000. Market was front running this event. But in a little bit here, I'll show you what I expect after we see a little bit of a drawdown here, after we see this cool down from this run we had. So if you guys get something useful out of this, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and let's get started. Now, this article explains things pretty well. I'll leave it down below for you. But basically, it goes over why Bitcoin and Ether are dropping after this Spot Ethereum approval. Basically, these fund issuers are going to have to go back and forth with the SEC. They're basically going to have to fill out the final touches, revise possibly, before they receive final permission to launch. And Anthony Trenchev, the co-founder of crypto lender Nexo, believes that why we didn't see a bigger reaction from this Spot ETH news is basically because the SEC has to do the final touches, cross the T's, dot the I's, before the Spot ETH ETFs can actually go live. And that's why he believes we didn't see a bigger reaction. The market hits on why I think that is right here. The market might be bearing in mind the old Wall Street saying, buy the rumor, sell the news. That's exactly what we saw. Ethereum was right around $3,000, struggling for $3,100. And then there was suddenly whispering, suddenly rumors that, hey, I think it's a 75% chance these Spot ETH ETFs get approved. And that caused a huge rally. That caused Ethereum to gain right around 25%, going from $3,100 to about $4,000. Remember, the market is forwards looking. The market isn't looking at today. The market is looking at the future. The market also tends to play games. It tends to price things in ahead of time. And then when the actual catalyst happens, we see a sell-off because it was already priced in. Similar with bad news too. When you see bad news approaching, you see a sell-off in anticipation of it. Once that bad news hits, usually things start recovering. Buy the rumor, sell the news event. And it is one of the oldest tricks in the book. It is exactly what we're seeing with Spot ETH ETF. It's the same thing we saw with the Bitcoin Spot ETF. When Bitcoin was 49,000, went all the way down to about 40,000 before rallying to new all-time highs. Now, I also want to show you guys Bitcoin dominance, and while I don't watch this very closely, don't really pay too much attention to it all the time, one thing you'll notice is we have been following this dominance trend. Ever since 2022, Bitcoin has maintained this dominance, just steadily growing its dominance, going from under 40% dominance all the way into nearly 60%. Here's something to be aware of. When dominance starts just dropping off a cliff, that's likely when alt season starts, or likely when alt season's already going on. And that's a good indication of a coming crypto winter, in my opinion. And look at last cycle. While we didn't just follow dominance to a T, didn't just go straight up and to the right there, you saw dominance overall grow in anticipation of the 2020 halving. After the halving, we started seeing dominance shrink a little bit. Altcoins started getting their run. Dominance picked back up briefly when Bitcoin went and tried to test 70,000 again. We kind of had a double top that cycle, which was different than any other cycle. When Bitcoin reached dominance of nearly 73% in the beginning of 2021, so a year after the halving year, dominance started dropping off a cliff. And upon bottoming out, that basically marked the bear market, the beginning of the bear market. So if you start seeing a huge drop like this, anticipate that altcoin season is coming, or it's already here, obviously, if we're seeing dominance drop. And perhaps we'll see a repeat of history where you see dominance kind of hit a floor, start trading sideways just like we did here. And that kind of marks the beginning of the bear market. After that point, altcoin season will be over. Bitcoin will have had its run. Maybe dominance goes from around here, around 60%, all the way back down to, 40, 45%. So while I'm not watching dominance every day like a hawk, it is something to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on our general uptrend. Once this changes, this doesn't mark the beginning of the bear market for Bitcoin, but it kind of marks a transition where we go more into an altcoin season where things really run there. Where soon after you want to start packing your bags and reassess and plan for the upcoming crypto winter. My suspicion is we will see crypto winters. We will still follow our 4-year cycle. Maybe not the same percentage wise. Maybe we don't have as dramatic of a drop. But in 2025, 2026, when things start really cooling down, when things start dropping, you want to already have taken most of your profits by then. And that is if you're playing the 4-year cycle. If you're seeing Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners long term, you don't care about the rips and dips along the way. You just want to buy and hold and buy and hold and accumulate, then carry on and continue DCA and continue buying. But if you're looking at Bitcoin, if you're looking at these altcoins cycle to cycle, I'd say we have a few more months of Bitcoin dominance growing before we start seeing these alts really take off. And maybe I'm wrong and this comes even sooner with this Spot ETH ETF approval. Maybe ETH starts running, it helps out the other altcoins, and it kind of kicks off this altcoin season. Now I want to show you Ethereum on the chart, and then I'll show you Bitcoin and kind of the timeline of where the SEC approved the Spot Bitcoin ETF and when things started rallying, when things went back to the price they were before approval. But basically Ethereum was, finding resistance under this descending resistance line. We finally broke out of it on, rumors that the Spot ETH ETFs were going to potentially be approved soon. And we started seeing hype. We started seeing a run all the way from like right around the low 3,000, 3,100, all the way up to about 4,000 before starting to cool off here before these Spot ETH ETFs were approved. And now, we're seeing a little bit of a cool down, seeing a little bit of a pullback. As I've said, I anticipate 3,500. We did get a wick down there, kind of a, stop loss hunt wick. I wouldn't be surprised to see this kind of continue to cool down over the weekend. If it does anything like Bitcoin, we'll see right around a month of a slow period, of a boring period for ETH before it goes on to rip. And I want to show you when Spot Bitcoin ETFs were approved. We were kind of running up in anticipation of it. We ran up all the way to about 49,000. Once they were approved, we sold off. We lost about $10,000 in gains. It ran all the way down to 38,000 or so. And this period lasted literally about a month. They were approved on the 11th, or they started trading on the 11th. And by February 9, February 10, we finally were getting to that level they were when they were approved. It took about a month, about a full month of Bitcoin pulling back, the buy the rumor, sell the news event playing out, getting that sell off, scaring retail out of their bags, and then going on to pump. And this, looking back, was nothing less than a buying opportunity. Nothing more than a buying opportunity, one or the other. This was a great buying opportunity, is the point. I do expect the same thing for Ethereum, very similar thing for Ethereum. If we see a pullback that lasts about a month, hopefully you take advantage and buy, because if it's going to be anything like Bitcoin, Ethereum may be pushing somewhere around 8,000 only a few months from now. Bitcoin took about 2 months. It took from about the beginning of February at 40,000 till the middle of March, just a little over a month actually, less than 2 months, to go on to create new all-time highs, to go to 73,000. It almost doubled its value in that short of a time frame. Ethereum's a smaller market cap. Maybe it outperforms, maybe it doesn't. Maybe there isn't as much hype for Ethereum. I do expect Ethereum to have a little slow period here, maybe for another month or so, which will be nothing but a buying opportunity. And if it plays out similarly to Bitcoin, within 2-3 months from now, we'll be looking at potentially around an $8,000 Ethereum. But make no mistake, any pullback on this news is definitely a buying opportunity. All right, now the miners are having a really good day today. Beginning of the day looked like it might be a little rough, but things are starting to look pretty good here. Of course, things can change quickly, but right now Iren is the top performer. It's up over double digits today, and that's nice to see a stock like Iren performing the best, at least as of this upload right now. Now I do expect for Iren for it to continue to follow this kind of a broadening pattern. Looks like we're finding resistance on it, which wouldn't be surprising. Our RSI is becoming a bit overbought. Yes, we have a little more room to push if the market wants to, but I'd say the risk is higher here. If you're buying right here, if you're playing calls or something, I would wait for, market to retrace, to test some lower levels, test $7 as a support. It was a previous pretty strong resistance before breaking out of it. So keep an eye on that $7 level. It'll be important. We did bounce off of it here. If we come down to retest it, if we break it, we will probably see a somewhat substantial drop to the mid 6s, maybe to the mid 5s, test that 50 MA. But yeah, in general, I do expect Iren to follow this pattern. And based on the pattern, we might see a little bit of retracement, but that's okay because Iren has ran from like $5 only a couple days ago all the way up to $8. A move like that definitely warrants a little cool down, and that's perfectly fine. That's healthy. That's good. And btbt, another stock that's doing pretty good today. Looking at the RSI, it does look like it's trying to bounce off this trend line. It's trying to stay over that 50 on the RSI as well. This is good. I like where this is going here so far. And btbt is following its uptrend. It's following its ascending channel. It previously found resistance on the 50 MA, kind of curled around it before finally breaking out of it, retesting this ascending channel as support, and bouncing out of it. And that move, that break over this 50 MA and the test as support, the successful test of the support, brought us all the way to the 200 MA. We did find resistance on the top end of this channel, the resistance line of this channel here. So we have a few points that we bounced off support, a few points that we bounced off as resistance. Right now, this is the trend for btbt. If it breaks the pattern to the downside or to the upside, it'll be invalidated. But until then, I do expect it to continue to follow this trend. And right now, it's in the middle of that pattern. But anyways, you know, maybe next week we start seeing btbt cool down, test this support, test this 50 MA area down in the low 2s before running higher, or we break this 200 MA, which we did just break under, so there's that. But possibly we break over the 200 MA and come test this ascending support right around $3. I do have $3 covered calls for btbt. That is pretty risky here, I'd say. It's very possible btbt can go over $3, but I figured, hey, I'll take the risk. It's already moved up pretty considerably. I wouldn't be surprised to see things cool down a little bit, but you know, for now the trend is up. You know, for now we can expect btbt to go higher. I am just personally hoping it doesn't go to around this area by mid-June. Otherwise, I'll be likely getting my btbt called away, or I'll be rolling those options out to a higher strike, longer date. But yeah, you know, one strategy is when these miners rally, when they become overbought, when they continue pushing, when you see these huge green days, sometimes it's not a bad idea to sell some covered calls. You get some premium. But let me know your strategy on these Bitcoin miners. Do you just buy and accumulate? Do you swing trade them on the dips and the rips? Do you follow different zones on the chart? Or do you treat these more as long-term companies? There is a company attached to that ticker symbol. It's not just a price on a board. And I gotta say, right now, these Bitcoin mining companies are doing quite well. Many have posted profitable quarters, and even with the halving taking half the rewards, I gotta say their upcoming earnings don't look all that bad. Yes, a few expect upcoming unprofitability, but a few also expect growth in revenue. In my opinion, Bitcoin running up for the rest of this month and into June, there's still a chance that a lot of these Bitcoin miners can post a profitable quarter. But I expect some will flip to unprofitability again in this upcoming earnings. However, in the next quarter, all we need is Bitcoin up a little bit higher. I think Bitcoin only needs like around an 8 to 10% move to break all-time highs. If we can get back over all-time highs, if we can start trading in the 80,000s for the first time, I would suspect that many of these Bitcoin miners are deeply in the profits, deeply profitable by then, and that's when the market really has fun with them. Once they get a good earnings post rewards being cut, I think that's what the market is watching for. At least that's one thing I'm watching for. And I'm feeling really good about the Bitcoin mining space in general. You know, fundamentally, if you remember them last cycle, you'll remember that they were posting profitability at the very, very, very end of the Bitcoin cycle, back when Bitcoin finally got 60-something thousand, right at the very end. This time around, we're going to see relatively consistent profitability, in my opinion, and it's a very exciting thing. I think it's a very good time to be in these Bitcoin miners, and I'm really very excited for them for the rest of 2024. And into part of 2025. But let me know what you guys are watching today. Most of the miners in general are doing pretty dang great today. Of course, things can change by the time you watch this, but so far so good. These Bitcoin miners are still respecting their uptrends, and hopefully we see that continue into the end of this month. Thanks as always for watching, guys. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you in a couple days.